On Sundays, the church is the most segregated hour in America on any given Sunday. Why is that? Listen, I don't have a problem with people, with businesses wanting to exclude me from patronizing their businesses. Look, I don't want to go anywhere where I'm not welcome. And I damn sure don't want to eat from a kitchen that prepares food for people they hate. But what you're not going to do is use my tax dollars to build and maintain these businesses and establishments, institutions, and educational systems, and then tell me that I'm not welcome. You damn right. I'm going to fight and make sure my taxes are allocated at the minimum away from racist establishments and into institutions that respect my contributions. Listen, at the end of the day, you ain't ever got to like me, but you damn sure are going to respect me. And that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. I know that's no way to start a show. I'll start over and I'll be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. Always so very happy to be with you today. And thank you for joining me live. For those of you who are live on Facebook and YouTube, chatting with your girl today. You know, we always have our first person in the chat. I'm going to give a special shout out to GB for always showing up first in the chat. And again, thank you to all of you who are live on YouTube and Facebook today. And for those who watch later, but you know, your presence is my presence, so I appreciate it. And y'all know what I need to do, which is share my video. So I'm going to do that now while I give you guys a chance to hop on. And I'm going to share it correctly. And I have. So how y'all doing? Y'all all right out there? Happy spring. Yeah. How did y'all, the first day of spring was the 20th, March 20th. Are y'all feeling the spring vibe? Are y'all seeing the trees blooming and the flowers and all of the lovely, or are you just having the effects from the allergies? Yeah, it's really lovely out here. I know it's peaking in the 60s somewhere in there, but it feels like the 80s to me when I step outside. It's a little warm. Very nice out here in Las Vegas, clear skies, and like I said, the weather's pretty nice. But yeah, we celebrated our first day of spring, March 20th. I hope all of you guys got outside. Go get grounded. Put your bare feet in some grass. Inhale, exhale. I'm talking to myself right now. Breathe slow. And do about 10, 25 times and just relax your body whenever you feel some type of level of stress coming on. Just breathe in and breathe out. And another thing I enjoy doing is humming. Before I even knew that it was a thing, like, you know, the church folks did it. You saw Big Mama doing it in the kitchen or just, you know, in any situation or circumstances, you hear her humming. I just did that, not even knowing subconsciously, but it always relaxed me just to do a little hum. So, you know, it kind of just, it's a vibration that goes through and it kind of erases whatever, you know, feelings you might be having in that moment. So you can interrupt whatever level of anxiety or whatever's bugging you. Okay. But yeah, during this first day of spring, I also learned that it's the first day of autumn in some hemispheres. You guys know that. So depending on what part of the equator you are at, you are actually, did I say winter or fall? I meant autumn. I don't know what I said, but I meant autumn. And so when some of us on the northern side of the hemisphere, we are experiencing spring, you know, the warmer temperatures, the flowers blooming, you know, nicer weather. There are people in the southern hemisphere who are experiencing autumn, like Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Kenya. Most parts of Africa are actually of the northern hemisphere, but there are some parts of Africa that are of the southern hemisphere. So again, Kenya, a lot of places, Somalia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, they're experiencing fall. Their first day of fall fell on our time of spring. So shout out to North America, Europe, Asia, 2/3 of South Africa, and 2/3 of Africa and 10% of South Africa, excuse me. And some of the countries, the largest countries with, with big populations, I say India, China, and the United States are also experiencing spring. So enjoy spring. I hope you guys are. And for those who are just tapping into fall on the other side of that equator, yeah, I hope it's cool for you. Yeah, sad news, you guys. We did lose some people. It seems like we can't get away from that, right? That's just the cycle of life, right? But we did yesterday. It was reported that George Foreman passed away at the age of 76. I'm not sure of his cause of death, but he was. If you don't know, he was a two-time world heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, entrepreneur, and a preacher. I mean, that's not to mention that he also had them George Foreman grills, okay? But he was featured in two of the most iconic boxing games of all time. If you guys remember, fighting Joe Frazier in the fight of the century in 1971, and then Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. Following his loss against Ali, he retired from boxing and became a Christian minister. He is also one of the great second acts in sports, as he came out of retirement 10 years later to reclaim his heavyweight crown. Mr. Foreman had 12 kids. And one of the most famous, things that we know about him, most of us, is that the 5 boys that he has, he named them all George, which I thought was quite interesting. We know we name kids after, the second or maybe the third and generational, but not consecutively, like next boy that come out is going to have the same name. But I guess, he did what he did. And he said, he just wanted the same name. He said he wrote this because he wanted to unite his kids. He felt like giving his sons the same name would keep his children together. He was quoted as saying, "I wanted them to have something in common. I tell them if one goes up, we all go up. If one gets in trouble, we all in trouble." Okay. And yeah, he said that to the Deaf with Graham Messenger, in depth with Graham Messenger in an interview in 2021. He said, "I tell them either live up to the name or change it." Interesting. Live up to the name or change it. I heard that. And, a lot of people do name their children, are very intentional about the name they give their children. And whether the kids know it or not, they do sometimes end up living up to it, just names that may say later or giver of freedom or just different names. If I can't think of any in particular now, but some kids are given names, at birth, and then they end up living up to it. It's interesting. Also, we lost another George, George Bell. If you guys are not familiar with him, he was recorded in 2017 as the tallest American. As tall as he was 7 feet 8 inches. He passed away Wednesday, March 19th. I'm not sure of his cause of death, but he was also a Harlem Globetrotter actor, law enforcement officer, who held the record of the tallest man in America again. He died at the age of 67. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him. I want to say it was in 2017. I think I notated 19 when that was an error, but I know it was before 2019. But I had my first live remote with In Your Ear Radio where I invited guests and, just my people to come out and hang out. We watched the movie All Eyes on Me, and we did some interviews. And he was one of the people I had a privilege of interviewing. Very tall man. But yeah, very cool. He was the conversation was smooth, and he was very, likable. And so my condolences to his family. He was quoted as being a gentle giant. He was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. And he was featured in the Guinness Book of World Records in 2007. He lost that title. We talked about that too, going back and forth, but he lost that title to Igor Volvinsky, who was a fraction of an inch taller. And I'm not sure if I think the conversation was that Igor, was not an American. And so technically he still held the title, if my memory serves me correctly. But he was just a fraction of an inch taller than Mr. Bell, and then regained in 2021 after Mr. Igor Volvinsky died, according to TV Insider. So yeah, it's a sad thing when people pass, and we know what it is. I was also reading another article about a terminally ill man who threw a goodbye party. So I'm guessing, if I was reading the article correctly, he had terminal cancer. So he knew he knows he's passing. He's still alive at this point, according to the article. But he invited 50 people, 50 of his closest friends and family, to have a party to celebrate his life before his passing. So there was live music, photos, and just speeches. He spoke. Other people spoke. A lot of tears, a lot of laughter. But what do you think about that? Would you be interested in doing it if you knew that your time was up, if you knew there was a deadline, would you throw yourself a party for your closest friends and family? Um, if you knew, I think that some of the things we do, not knowing, because we can never know for the most part overall, is we have our birthday parties. We do different celebrations to acknowledge our lives. Like I said, that's why birthdays are such a big deal for me, because it's celebrating again, you're still here, so that's what's up. And so I wonder if people would still do that. Like, if you knew that your time was up, would you have a pre-funeral, something to celebrate you while you're living? I like that better. I like that better than having a funeral. But yeah, so I think in essence we do that to some degree. Some of us do celebrate each other, and I said mostly with birthday parties or just acknowledgement, achievement awards, and things of that nature. But an actual party, a going away party, because you're passing, what must that be like? Wow. But I think that really filled his cup, and that was fulfilling. And I think that would give a lot of people a lot of closure and peace, um, you know, and resolve. Shout out to Pieces of She, who's watching on YouTube. Thank you for joining me, girl. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Also on this day, and you guys, for those of you who are joining me, yes, the show is about, we're going to talk about segregation, but as you know, we talk about a lot of other things, because so much has happened between the Saturday we spoke before up until this Saturday. So there's a gap. So, I'll be trying to catch up and just, share some information in between the time that we've spoken before. But yes, we're going to get into the topic of segregation. I want to know what you guys think and feel about that. As well. But I want to get your opinion on some other things as well. Again, just thinking about celebrating your life before you're gone. Shout out to GB, who says that's dope. I would want to do that too. Celebrate me while I'm here. That's right. Give me my flowers. That's me saying that. But don't fall into sadness when I leave. I've lived my life. Amen. Amen to that. Right. But how do you get around not being sad? When you miss somebody, it's just a natural thing. They say grief is just a form of love. If you love somebody, you're going to miss them. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, yeah, the sadness is a sad thing. And Pieces of She says, for sure, let me smell my flowers. I agree. I even thought about doing a roast for one of my birthdays where people could get up and tease me because I'm good with the caps and just laughing and being teased. Just some funny spirited way of having celebrating people, not mean, but, just to have fun and laugh and joke about people and their quirks and characteristics and things you appreciate about. That's right. Give me my flowers while I'm still here. I would appreciate to hear everything that you guys love and respect about me while I'm still here. So yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah. And I wouldn't want people to be sad for me leaving either. But I understand, it's kind of unavoidable. Okay. If you've mastered that, please, I need to sit down and be at the feet of you and understand your wisdom and being able to master that. But also on this day, March 22nd, I know I was hearing some of you guys are watching a lot of women's basketball this weekend, maybe yesterday, but also on this day, actually, March 22nd, in 1893, it was the first women's college basketball game. It was played at Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts, with each made basket counting as 1 point and the game lasting two 15-minute halves. It was a sophomore class team, and they prevailed over the freshman team 5-4. So the men were not permitted inside of the gym, and they were all women college, but there was a crowd. The crowd seemed to be fascinating. They were cheering. Again, just women of their fellow classmates from the running track of the campus gymnasium. So the winning team, they earned a gold and white banner. So yes, on this day, the first women's college basketball team was played. And the first women's college basketball game was organized by the college's gymnastic instructor, Lithuanian, which was an immigrant, Lithuanian immigrant, Cinda Berenson. And less than 2 years after the invention of the game. So Cinda went ahead and created women's college basketball after the invention of the actual sport of basketball in late 1891 by Dr. James Naismith. I'm sure I'm butchering his name, but Cinda rules were adapted from Naismith's rules for men, making basketball one of the rarest sports that developed the male and female versions of the parallel timeline. I want to do more research into basketball because I just feel like that's a black sport. I feel like some kind of way, some history is going to tell us that black people really came up with basketball. And I just think that because how good we do. But then when I thought about it more, because I'm having these conversations with myself, any sport that we touch, we excel at. So yeah, even though we don't create it or invent it, we just good like that. You know what I'm saying? We just good like that. We built for it. So shout out to the women's sports, women's basketball. For those of you who are watching and supporting, shout out to our local team, the Aces here. And yeah, so y'all, what? Egg prices are down. What? Right around Easter? Are you kidding me? Stop playing in my face. Stop playing in my face. Yes, egg prices are slowly going down, falling to $3.27 per dozen. Look, won't he do it? Won't he do it right before Easter? Sean, I'm just saying.com. Like, the prices, the egg prices were ranging between $2.70 and $4.15. That's 36% 0.8 36.8% higher than the previous December. But in February, the wholesale cost for a dozen had surpassed $8 for a dozen of eggs. And like I said, right around Christmas, right around Easter, the prices are going down. Who do they think they playing with? Do they think we stupid? Like, do they think we stupid or dumb? Which one is it? But anyways, Trump said, he's congratulating himself, patting himself on the back, or y'all's president, I should say. And he says way down from Biden. Again, the prior, when Biden was in office in December, the eggs were peaked at $4.15. But okay. And then, of course, y'all's other president, Elon Musk, alleged that former President Joe Biden was in a large part responsible for higher egg prices after ordering an insane slaughter of 150 million egg-laying chickens. Yeah. Okay, so what was we supposed to do with those chickens? I'm just asking for a friend. Like, I'm no scientist. So he said that, yeah, he thinks that's why he wants to blame Biden for, killing all of the sick chickens so that the humans wouldn't have access to them and it wouldn't continue to spread, and it's all his fault. So the cooling birds are infected stocks, and it is a policy of the Department of Agriculture, and it's also being followed under y'all's current president. So this is what we do, except we don't get any updates on the bird flu. You might have to go to the World Health Organization to see how other countries are monitoring and paying attention to this bug, because we have been ejected from WHO. That's the World Health Organization. So, but you can still go to their website and learn what's happening globally, even if you might not know locally what's happening. The price of eggs are down, so I guess that's a sign that bird flu is better here in the United States. The games people play. Shout out to GB, who says Christmas and Easter are actually connected. Not like we were taught, though. Y'all research that when you get a chance. That's what's up. Amen to that. Yeah, research that, because definitely Christmas and Easter are connected. Yeah. All right, I want to elaborate more on that now. Well, we got so much to get into. I definitely want to get into the conversation discussing segregation, since y'all's president can't stay out the news and can't stay pulling out executive orders. And just so you guys know, executive orders are not law. Basically, it's lasts as long as that president lasts. And when a new president comes in, just like this president did, got rid of a lot of executive orders that were implemented by the prior administration, the same thing will happen. So this change, if it goes into effect by way of executive order, any changes he make are temporary. So just keep that in mind while he pulling stunts on everybody. And then you got these stunts here in Vegas. People are protesting. I'm saying all these FAFOs, everybody that's, then messed around and they didn't found out. They mad about it. And they in the streets. They mad at Elon Musk. They burning up cars. In Vegas, it was a couple of cars burnt at a local dealership. In Canada, there was 80 Tesla vehicles. This was on March 20th, if I'm not mistaken. 80 vehicles at a car dealership that were damaged. Also in other areas, but yeah, definitely here in Las Vegas recently, there was a fire. And now, of course, Elon Musk is speaking out against violence, and just, yeah, whatever. We don't care. We don't care what you think. And Attorney General Pam Bondi announced charges against the 3 violent Tesla arsonists in Colorado. So it was also fires there. I think they're using cocktail bombs of some sort to do this. And they're coming out with weapons. So they got AKs, you know what I'm saying? They're ready for war. And so they're making a point. They're letting people know that they are in opposition to what these people are trying to do, which is try to rule over all people and keep people weak, poor, sick, broke, unhoused, and poorly educated, all those things. This is what your new administration is working on tirelessly. So, yeah, but a week after y'all's president turned the White House lawn into a Tesla infomercial for Elon Musk cars, you had a Republican who also had to speak up. So there was a second sales pitch by a U.S. official that occurred this time. Just because the Tulsa stock, you guys know the Tulsa stock is going down, and so you had y'all's president, doing a commercial at the White House, encouraging people to buy the cars. But the government ethics expert, Lutnick, broke. They said that this Lutnick, this is a guy who got on the news media and encouraged people to buy the Tulsas now because they're really cheap. I don't wonder why they're so cheap right now. Okay, but the government ethics said that this particular Republican Lutnick broke a 1989 law prohibiting federal employees from using public office for private gain. Sounds like some insider trader going on. But yeah, these people don't play by the rules. There's no rules for there's just absolutely no rules for these people. But history teaches us that, they'll create the rules, but they don't mean to abide by them, because that's how they win. Their wild card is not playing by the rules. So yeah, so we'll see if there's going to be any type of repercussions for his actions, since he did violate the law. Remember, we have a lawless person in office now. We have a person who has 34 felonies, been convicted of sexual assault, bankruptcy 6 times, bankrupted Atlantic City for private contractors, people that didn't get paid for work that they did. I mean, we got a criminal, we got a crook and a criminal in office now. So who's to speak about, breaking the law? Shout out to Peace to She, who said Elon is trying to blame the Tulsa attack on the liberals, but it's the pissed off MAGAs that are feeling betrayed. Amen to that. That's true too. It is so freaking true. Yeah, they mad as hell because they didn't sign up for this. And now, that's all America first and make America great again. Now you got some immigrant, ironically, running stuff, and he don't give a damn about nobody. These oligarchs don't care about people. They care about money and power. They don't care about people. They use you. They use you as a stepping stone. And when they was through, they said, "You're sorry, but home, jobless, subsidyless. You can't even get what you paid into Social Security. If your family needs benefits to help you be able to eat and see a doctor, or just kids being able to have food. Some kids, that's the only time they eat is when they go to school. Like, these people are trying to take everything away, and your education. Yeah, you MAGA people, that's what y'all voted for, because y'all thought that they was gonna hand pick y'all to the side and make sure y'all didn't catch none of this smoke. But yeah, they used you. They use you to do what you have now, and this is why they call this the FAFO climate, and you deserve it. And my condolences, and I feel bad for innocent people who voted and did their best, to prevent this from happening, being considered as collateral damage. So yeah, we're living in a lawless state right now. We're living in a lawless state, and just to understand what lawlessness is, it's not governed by or obedient to laws. We have a lawless president. He's not obedient to laws, and he feels that he shouldn't be governed by laws. He feels like at the executive state that forget the other 2 branches of government. He is the rule maker, and whatever he says is what it is. So this is what we're going through right now. This is what we're going through. And in the midst of all that, because one can't exist without the other, darkness can't exist without light, joy can't exist without pain. So there's goodness and there's some bad things happening. So for the goodness, just sprinkle in a little goodness before we get into some shenanigans to discuss the segregation stuff. Just to get into a little of a goodness, there was a 13-year-old young Black boy who was accepted to a prestigious HBCU called Morehouse College. Who? Okay. So I want to just celebrate that. And he's a 13-year-old student at Hills Academy in Conyers, Georgia. He received an acceptance letter from Morehouse College, which he said was his dream school. When he was 4, he said that was his dream school when he was 4. Who knew about Morehouse when he was 4? Who knew about Morehouse? Okay. So Joshua is no stranger to making early academic achievements. Joshua suited his mother, Chandra, who was described the teen as a miracle from the beginning, underwent in utero surgery to ensure his safe delivery at 19 weeks when she was pregnant. As a 9-month-old, Joshua began talking. And then at 18 months, he was reading, and Joshua wrote his first book at the age of 3. He knew how to write at 3. This young Black boy. The teenager was skipped multiple grades, jumping from second to fifth, then to seventh, and then later to the 11th. He received over 20 college acceptances from institutions such as Miles College, Shawn University, Tennessee State, University of Jackson State. Um, and also, he was just 12 years old when he got these acceptances. Joshua is currently dual enrolled at Augusta Technical College, where he has completed 27 credits hours with a GPA of 3.88. Shout out to Joshua. He said he always wanted to attend Morehouse. Again, he was at the age of 4 when he learned of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Um, and now at 13, he plans to study international relations at the King's Alma Mater. And Joshua, that's Martin Luther King, and Joshua will defer his enrollment for 1 year to finish high school and then commute to Morehouse. So shout out to Morehouse. And at this point, I feel like I just need to clap for him, give him a clap. Shout out to lieu of Women's History Month, shout out to his mother, Chandra, for having him, for giving life and bringing forth such excellence. Thank you so much. And again, shout out to Morehouse College. That's the #1 producer of Black men who go on to earn their doctorates, according to the National Science Foundation. So that's what's up. Y'all, it's so much going on. It is so much going on. Again, we're living under a world of lawlessness here in the United States. And again, lawlessness is someone who is not obedient to or governed by law, does not even follow the law. This is y'all's president. This is y'all's president. Okay. He took away, over 900 Venezuelans were deported, put on a plane, and sent back to Venezuela, being accused of being in a gang. If you guys hear about this story. And speaking of gangs, the Rolling 60s is under some RICO charges. So a lot of them are being gaffled up too. And just on the sidebar, for these Rolling 60s gangs, or any gangs, or any people who are involved in alleged racketeering and whatever is associated with that. We know that includes drug use, sex trafficking, bribery, whatever goes on with that. Y'all need to stay off these podcasts. I don't understand. I'm just saying, like, y'all just be telling on yourself. But anyways, that's pretty interesting. And just, even thinking about the Rolling 60s gangs, we know that for Black gangs, when we first started out, this was in the 70s, 1976, when the Rolling 60s came about, they were not formulated based on violence and drug wars and turf wars. They were brought together for protection in the Black community due to social unrest, due to racism, due to, other gangs such as the Ku Klux Klan and people who were trying to take them out, mainly just for existing or voting or just, living in areas where they wanted to live and things of that nature. So, gangs didn't start off like that. It just kind of evolved into something totally different in the Black community, which is unfortunate. But the gangs in the Black community did not start off as just, reckless gun violence and, drug trafficking and all of the other things that come with it. So, but anyway, these Venezuelan gangs, supposedly they're saying that these people were part of, the Trade de Aragua gang, if I'm saying that correctly, sent all these people back to Venezuela, even though a judge said, hey, don't do that. Like they didn't do any checks and balances to prove that these people were actually criminals or associated with any gang. And so they just did what they wanted to do. And even though a judge ordered them to, back the plane up, make a U-turn, come back, y'all's president, y'all lawless president said, nah, baby, we ain't gonna do it. And went ahead and sent these people over to Venezuela. And here's the sad part about this. And this was something that I was trying to push and reiterate prior to the election in November, was that, a lot of, you can have your perceptions, you can have your principles, you can have, what you think you like to see this country as, but when you don't look at the fact that everybody's affected by the decisions we make. So you're looking, a lot of people look at it like, I'm voting for this guy, the current man in office, because he's going to get rid of all of the criminals. Well, yeah, that's what he sold to you and you bought it. You know what I'm saying? You don't get a refund, but your ass might get deported too, because he's not even doing checks and balances to determine if you are in fact even associated, with a gang. He's just shipping people out with taxpayers' dollars, and he's not even respecting the courts to say, hey, we need to do our checks and balances because a lot of innocent people, hardworking people, are being shipped out. Yeah, it's the Venezuelans now, but be careful because it could be you next. And I even have just looking at a report of a black woman who's down being held by ICE because she's on social media being an activist. And maybe she has some ties to another country. Maybe she just has a green card. I don't know all of the details, but y'all thought they were just going to be going after Mexicans or brown people, people of color, as far as who was going to be affected. But you see, MAGA's being affected. We see everybody's being affected if you're not an oligarch. But yeah, so even the representative there of the Venezuela um, said that these are not none of these the 900 plus people that they have sent to Venezuela are in no way associated with these gangs, and they're pushing this based on Alien Enemies Act. So, and this is supposed to only be evoked when there is an actual wartime. So yeah, but some people will arguably say we are in a civil war. So it's just, I guess it's how you think about it. And it's just overwhelming, you guys. It's really, really overwhelming to think about everything that's happening. We can't talk about everything. And a lot of this stuff, again, is just to keep our head on the swivel, just spinning, spinning, and not being able to focus on what they're really, really doing. Because even with the segregation, as we'll talk about how the bill was passed for the segregation of basically stating that contractors no longer were required to follow the Civil Rights Act. In other words, they can actually design buildings and construct places and segregate based on whatever reasons they have. Um, that happened in February, and we just heard about it this week. Here we're in March now. That happened early February, and we're just hearing about that. So it's just something to keep in mind when we're thinking about everything. And I'm just thinking about gangs and just overall, and just our kids, and just it's just a lot to think about. It's very, very overwhelming to think about everything that's happening. But I do want to encourage you guys to not forget to continue to shop black. I don't know if y'all still boycotting Target. These are some of the websites you can go to shop. Now, Spore.co, they have the laundry detergent. They'll send you a whole pack. If you guys haven't, they've been around forever, but it's NASPORA.co. They have a laundry detergent and other products, black owned. I need to order it because I need to see what it smells like, because you got to smell right. But I'm looking forward to trying that. They said Target has lost over $4 billion since we've started this boycott. It's reported that Black people spent millions, hundreds of millions, if not daily, prior to this shopping at Target, and now they've lost, reportedly $4 billion. And maybe that's true. I don't know how, what information we can really trust now. It's hard to trust. It's hard to trust the media. Well, you guys, it's just so much. It's just so much, and I just want to go ahead and just get into it and talk about this. And before I really get into it, I just want to ask the question, because just thinking about segregation. We live in a time where some of our parents actually were born during a time where there was actually, in fact, segregation, where they had to kneel to a white person, hop off the sidewalk if another white person was coming, and they've lived this life already, and here we are again, subjected to it, and y'all's current president is doing what he can to make sure that he gets his way. So MAGA's getting they're trying to get some of their wishes, but will they get them all? But in light of this new executive order that y'all's president has put out, there's been conversation about it. So I wanted to talk to you guys about it and see how you feel about it and what's your takeaway. Like, do you think segregation is a good look? Is it possible? I mean, listen, my family is like the Rainbow Coalition. We have different ethnicities, a lot of children with mixed ethnicity, parents. Like, how would that really work? And then, in the Black community, we don't really have a segregation, except when it came to a white structure where we had that brown paper bag rule. But overall, if we build something, everybody is welcome. Just don't come over here starting that, right? So it's not an issue with us. But with white people, they mean that. They mean that. Don't put a sign in the window, that says whites only, okay, straights only, or whatever their issue is. But there was an interview done. A lady, she was sitting on the subway, and she was having a conversation with somebody who was asking her, how do you feel about segregation? What do you think about it? And also, shout out to you guys, because I did post on social media asking you guys what show topic ideas you had in mind. And some of you guys responded, and this is one of the reasons why I'm even having this discussion today about segregation. So I appreciate you guys for interacting and engaging and just sharing your thoughts as well. So I appreciate that. But this was an interview by a Black woman sitting on a subway, and there was a gentleman asking her questions about segregation.
So what's your take?
Bring back segregation.
100% disagree.
Dead and bring it back. I want to know where I'm not welcome, okay? Put them signs back up. Colors only, whites only. Let's do it, all right? Rip the Band-Aid off. Especially for a restaurant. Are you kidding me? Whites only? What do I want to do in there? What they got? Mashed potatoes? Mayonnaise? Hot dogs? Colors only, we got seasoning, turmeric, paprika.
Okay, I like this.
Okay.
You're saying that the Black excellence.
Absolutely.
The segregation is to get the
colored excellence.
Okay.
Okay, what's the playlist in the whites only spot? They playing Carrie Underwood and Kid Rock. We playing Babyface and Diggable Planets. Ain't no overhead lighting. What are you talking about?
Wait, where am I going?
Colors.
Hell yeah.
Look at his hair. Talking about where am I going? That's the problem with North Africans.
That's what I'm talking about. Hell yeah. I'm in. 100% agree. Let's go.
Talking about where I'm going.
Oh, man, yeah.
What happens to you in the summertime?
Where are we putting the Italians?
Listen.
I just want to know.
I don't need their food. I don't like tomatoes.
So they're going on the white side.
Black people spend over $1 trillion a year. I would love for the government to force us to spend it on our own people.
This is very good.
Yes.
I like this a lot.
I brought you over to the side.
And the black airplane?
Oh, come on. The soul plane, baby.
I want to be on soul plane.
Yes, it's going to be noisy on there, but that's what noise cancellation headphones are for. You know what I'm saying?
And they're going to have all the good movies.
All the good movies, all the good music.
Oh, man.
And while we at it, bring back sundown towns. They never left, but...
What's that?
Well, a sundown town was back in the day during Jim Crow, where black people weren't allowed to be in a town after the sunset.
Wow.
So those towns never left. They still exist in America, but they took the signs down. I want them to put the signs back up. I wanted to say 248 miles to the next town that likes colored people. Get your gas in Atlanta. Don't stop till you get to Savannah. All right?
I'm with her.
He with me.
Ain't that something, y'all? Ain't that something? To where, yes, we still have sundown towns. If you guys have been following the news, two twin boys, I believe they were 19 years old, were planning a flight out to visit family or friends, and they didn't make it. They were ended up shot to death in the woods, and they called it a murder-suicide until their family and attorney Benjamin Crump got involved. And there was further investigation to where at this point a firefighter has not only been arrested, but also fired because he posted photos of the scene. So I don't know if he's tied to it, but they were in a sundown town. So they were traveling by way of, I want to say vehicle, I'm not really sure, but they were traveling, and their family thought it was just odd that they were even in that area. So I don't know if they were lured there or if they, what happened, how they ended up in a sundown town. And we do have books. I want to say it's the Green Book, but we do have books that specify sundown town. Like, because we've known that to be something that happened in the 60s and 70s when our family traveled. Just thinking of certain things that I've experienced, like with my auntie, like whenever we would travel, we would have a big bucket of chicken. And we just figured that was just what we do. We make sure we don't have to stop at McDonald's to get food or whatever. But learning the history of why Black people travel with food on the road is because they didn't have an opportunity to stop at a McDonald's or, any restaurants along the way. They barely had the opportunity to get gas because you never knew you was going to run into some hateful white person that wanted to hang you and lynch you. So, just thinking about all the things we did, packing up food, things that are traditional to us, like just part of our day-to-day life, are actually things that were instilled in us to travel on these roads because we didn't want to get caught in a sundown town. And that means you don't want to get caught in this particular town when the sun is down. How does that happen? So, the question, when you're asking a question, when I asked the question, is segregation back? Did it really ever go anywhere? You can't travel certain places. Yeah, you can't travel certain places and And you go into certain communities, and then you got to remember the sheriffs, the police in that community, they're all together. They're all racist, they're all hateful, they're all demons, and so they work together, so they're going to protect each other. You think about Ahmaud Arbery, you had somebody on the jury, not jury, but on the judicial level. I want to say she was an attorney. Anyway, she was an elected official who refused to investigate the people that killed Ahmaud Arbery. And basically, if you guys don't remember the story, he was walking in a neighborhood where a house was being rehabbed, which he did often. He would go in and check, to see the renovations or whatnot. And some white people pulled up in a truck and guns and held him, hostage, and said he was breaking into a house and took his life. And they tried to get away with it. And there was an elected official who was protecting them until, again, we got in there and said, hell to the no, no, no. We need an investigation. You don't just get to close this and say a black man was criminalized, he was doing criminalistic things, and without knowing that. Shout out to GB, who's just doubling back. I think we were talking about basically just a few. He says, how, what's funny, and another example of hypocrisy, just a few years ago, the other side was against green energy as a whole. However, they're now trying to push these products. Yeah, so we were talking about Tesla, and I was just saying how, people aren't supporting Tesla because it's an electric vehicle and that they don't believe in the green energy, even though the other side really didn't. They still think that, global warming is not a thing. Yeah, they are mad because this man is cutting into their paychecks, into their jobs, right? So that's what they're mad about. So they don't want, that's what, what Tesla's all about. So yeah. But just getting back to speaking about whatever I was speaking about. Just getting back to the conversation, just talking about segregation and if segregation is gone. And I said, would you want segregation back? So just listening to this lady speak, it's, some little funny parts to it that, yeah, we season our food better, right? We don't necessarily need to go into places that are just, white establishments, because they don't have the culture and they don't have the seasoning. They put raisins in their potato salad, and you want to know who don't like you. And yeah, start putting up these sundown town signs again, so we know where not to travel. But is that fair? Is that lawful? We pay for these roads. We pay for these roads that we travel on, but we have to be fearful of traveling on because we run the risk of being pulled over and lynched. So, it's, I want to know who doesn't respect me so I can actually get them closed down. Like, go find you another planet to live on, because God ain't making no more land. We all got to live here. And there are laws in place so that all humanity can coexist. So if you have a problem living amongst all other people, you need to go ahead and rock with Elon and get on to another planet, because here, where there is no new land being made, and we're going to figure out a way to coexist. And that's how I look at it. But I am totally cool with us having our own communities, our own educational systems where we have our own curriculums where we teach our kids. I strongly think that we need to have in place for our young men, and something in place for our young women, but for our young men first, is a rite of passage. I know there are schools here locally within the country that offer that. And sometimes it's based on religion or whatever institution that you subscribe to. But I think that should be just in general. That should be a public education for our community, where our young boys are educated and taught everything from who they are, where they came from, critical thinking, how to manage money, how to maintain a family, how to teach them masonry, electrician, plumbing, just anything that falls in a line of what our males need to be able to do to be able to survive and to take care of their families. I appreciated in school having home economics, which was majority women, but it was unisex. So there were some guys in there, and we knew why they was there, because they liked the cookies that we used to cook on Fridays, and the girls. But it also, I learned how to hem, so I learned how to cook some different things. I learned how to balance a checkbook, some of those things. So yeah, I think that we should have something separate. And again, as Black people, we don't exclude. We don't, just come out and say no white people or Asian people or whatever people we don't want in these facilities. We just make it majority. We cater it to us. So in that way, as far as segregation goes, yes, I think we need something separate. It could be equal, but we definitely need our own separate structures for ourselves. Even policing, we need our own people to community police a community, that live within the community, that know us, and so that we don't have to have that fear factor of some racist cokehead, somebody full off of steroids, have their preconceived notions about Black people and stereotype, or just looking for somebody to kill, um, come into our house when we have an issue. You know what I'm saying? Well, we need some type of help because we pay into that. We somewhat live in a socialistic society where we do pay into having police officers pull up when the fire department pulls up. We don't pay, they don't send us a bill, but we pay into it. Our tax dollars pay into these things, certain buildings that we go to downtown, on the streets, the roads that we ride on. So you trying to eliminate us being able to enter into public buildings and having access to certain things means that our tax dollars shouldn't be applied to these institutions either, to these the construction and the roads or whatnot. We need to reallocate that. And so you have a president who went on and signed a bill, an executive order, to make it so that contractors, again, they're no longer requiring that they have they have they're no longer requiring an explicit prohibition of segregated facilities in the new government contract. So a lot of people, all the headlines, everywhere you look, reputable, so-called reputable news media and whatnot, were basically saying, oh, he ended segregation. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He's trying to, though, and he's not respecting the law. So he might be able to get rid of this. Remember, the dog whistle was states' rights. So he can put this into effect. People can start doing it, and then they can go back and forth and fight about this, right? And that's why you hear people say they do believe we're in a constitutional crisis, because the Constitution, there is an amendment. We have the Civil Rights Act. We have protections in place that makes it against the law to discriminate. You cannot segregate buildings, public buildings. It's actually written into the law. So how do you turn around without getting rid of the Civil Rights Act, without getting rid of the 14th Amendment, without getting rid of these things? How do you turn around and just say that contractors can now segregate? They can lawfully do so. So that's not what it is, y'all. And so basically what it is that these contractors, no, technically, he's saying you can build whatever you want to build. So I'll give you an example. When you're having work done at your house, right? You have inspectors come, they make sure that you're at code. So there are certain things you have to have. You're having plumbing done, electrical done. There are certain codes that you have to follow in order to pass inspection for your safety, right? So the same thing goes with construction of public buildings and everything of that nature. There are certain codes you have to pass. So you're going in here and you're looking at these, and these inspectors are coming in and they're saying, okay, they have unisex bathrooms, they have a family bathroom, nothing, they're not putting up anything that shows segregation, whites only, blacks only, whatnot. These inspectors now have the privilege of looking the other way. So if certain bills, certain things the president is saying, we're not looking at that really no more. So it's, you can come into my house and I can have the plumbing done. And we're not really looking at that, even though there's a law on the books that says that the plumbing has to be done explicitly this way. And it is for the safety and protection of all people. But if you can just look the other way, so these now they can pass. They can build an institution, they can build these structural buildings, and the construction, the inspectors can look the other way as to whatever they're doing in relation to segregation. They can turn the other cheek, and it would be up to us to say hell to the no, and sue them for breaking the law. So he's saying, go ahead, we ain't really looking at that. So it comes back to us, the people, to be able to speak out against it, because it is still a law. The Civil Rights Act is still in effect. The Civil Rights Act is still here. It was enacted in 1965 to enforce the constitutional right to vote, to confer jurisdiction upon the district courts of the United States to provide injunctive relief against discrimination in public accommodations, to authorize the Attorney General to institute suits to protect constitutional rights to public facilities and public education, to extend the Commission on the Civil Rights to prevent discrimination in federally assisted programs, to establish a commission on equal employment opportunity, and for other purposes, okay? This was enacted by the House of Representatives in the United States of America, you guys, and Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Civil Rights Act. It was actually enacted in 1964. This Civil Rights Act is still here. So this man telling you that people can discriminate against you is telling you, he's basically putting a middle finger up to the law. This is basically what he's saying. catch me if you can, like the gingerbread man. So he's making us work harder to stop him from doing this mess. And sometimes I'm hopeful because I see, for example, you think about the Venezuelans, you had a judge tell them, no, this is unlawful, bring them back. But they did not listen. So nobody's going to be held accountable. You're not arresting anybody. This is a problem I have. Okay, people break the law. You can run a red light. I get it. You get a ticket. You go through the process, and you're held accountable. In this case, you just tell them they can't do something, but they're not being held accountable. So if you're telling them to come back and they're defying the law, they should be arrested. Why are they still being allowed to do what they're doing? And that's the problem that I have with people in these different branches of government. That's from the Congress to the Senate to the, these judges, the judicial system. Yeah, I see some of the fights because some people are being brought back to work. Thousands of people laid off, and they're now being brought back to work. All of that stress and grief. So some people are doing, there's hope in the fact that some people are fighting for the people, but the fight ain't strong enough for me. You should be arrested. You should be arrested for breaking the law. You sent 900 and some people to a whole country using taxpayer dollars and just set middle fingers up to the judge's ruling, and you still get to walk around and eat steak and shrimp. I don't understand it. Shout out to Tiffany, who's made Alor, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who says psychological modern day segregation, class segregation, education, financial contracts, transportation, corporate consumers, international relationships. Lots to think about. It is. And we'll probably be talking about this even more and more because it is a lot. When I was just trying to just shrink it because it's so much, like where do I start with this conversation? Just easing into it. I'm like, this is definitely going to be not just a 1-part conversation, not just a 2-part conversation. There's so many different levels to this and what it means, because some people would like to live separate, not necessarily because they're hateful or don't like other ethnicities or races, but because they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered with, people. You know what I'm saying? But then we still live in a world where we still have to be careful where we travel because we still, in fact, have sundown town. So even if we have our own areas, which we've had, you think of Black Wall Street, all of the towns and communities that we've had, minding our business, running our own hospitals, airplanes, everything that we had, we were self-sustainable. We had everything we needed. When people that didn't look like us just got full of jealousy and hate, what did they do? They burned it down. And a lot of this was by the assistance of the military who provided, weapons and planes to help destroy. So it's not even so much that, we can separate and live in peace. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so many different levels to this. It's easy to say, we can be separate. In a world that we live in today, no, I don't want to go into a restaurant. I don't want to be anywhere where I'm not welcome. And yes, I would love to see a sign that says whites only, but you know what? You don't deserve to have a service. You don't deserve to have a building because you're breaking the law. Like, first of all, you can hate me, do you? But you need to go find another planet to live on if that's how you feel, or go into a private sector and cater to people who are hatefully and ugly like you. You know what I'm saying? But so it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to sort out. It's just so much to think about. So I wouldn't mind having our own just community where our own banking systems where we pour into, at least not if 100%, 90%, 80% of our money is into Black banks. We have our own laws to govern ourselves, again, policing, education, financial, structural infrastructure. I think we would do good with that. I think that would raise the morale. I think that people would have more love and respect for each other within our community, and people wouldn't be so quick to waste a life, having that value system in effect. But right now we live as being non-segregated. We live we're our education is coming from who's teaching us. You know what I'm saying? There was a quote talking about how the Jewish community would not allow Nazis to educate their kids. But here we are in a burning house. You thought of, when you think about Dr. Martin Luther King, who fought along with others to give us the right to be able to go into certain, just live with equality. Okay. When he got to the equity part, that's when, it was time to take him out, right? That's when he had to take his life. But we were looking for equality. Just treat us the same. We should not have to go through the back door. We shouldn't have to have lower wages because of our skin color. We should not have to live in certain areas because of our skin color. We should be able to roam this country freely as anybody else, especially as taxpaying citizens. Who are you to tell me where I need to be with your white fragile, fraudulent. I'm thinking of the book White Fragility, with your white fragile self. So this is what we're up against. And even again, Dr. Martin Luther King said that he after he fought so hard, forcing LBJ, a Democrat, to sign and enact the Civil Rights Act, he had a candid conversation with activist and actor, the late great Harry Belafonte, to say, I think I've integrated us into a burning building. So when he thought more about what he was doing, separate but equal would have been the best way for us to go, right? Even though we weren't getting that. But this is why we have to take things back into our own hands. We have many billionaires. We have the money. We have $1 trillion spending power. We can build our own. We can have our own within these communities. I'm saying two things, I think, because again, I think that we need to have our own communities, but God ain't making no new land. So can we really just separate ourselves 100% wholly? No, we can't. But we can have our own. We can build our own. We can maintain our own. And, we can have something reverse, opposite of sundown towns. You come into our neighborhoods, we ain't going to take you out unless, I think, shout out to Chicago, where you had some white people going to a community. I can't remember exactly the location, but yes, white just messing with people. They literally went over there to mess with these black people that were minding their business, barbecuing, doing whatever they were doing, taking care of their kids, reading books, living their lives, working day and day. But these people decided that they wanted to get up and go into a whole black community and start something. And this is what we've always been up against here in this world. You know what I'm saying? Living amongst these people, these breed of people. It's a special kind of people. And so even if we had just our own separate states, because when I think about reparations, I think reparations should include our own separate states, that we should have sovereignty, which we don't have. Do you know the Native Americans didn't get sovereignty here in the United States, I don't think, until the early 70s? I mean, not sovereignty, because they wouldn't allow them to have sovereignty. Excuse me. They didn't get citizenship until 1924. Okay, mind you, they were native to the land. They were already here, but they were not granted citizenship until 1924. And some didn't want citizenship. They wanted sovereignty, which means I want my own space and my own place. I don't want nothing to do with y'all. Y'all are a disease. Y'all are a disease that takes out the best of the best. And so, it's a tough conversation to have when we talk about segregation. You think about just the whole, it's just a lot. It's a lot. And I just wonder, you guys are in the chat listening, Facebook and YouTube. Let me know what you think. Do you think that we need to live separate? And again, when we think about equality, what we were fighting for under the Civil Rights Act, not to be discriminated against because of our religion, sex, creed, nationality, whatever it was. Equity was a thing, again, that became an issue, because equity, different from equality, meant that you had to give me the same pay that you give this person. So discrimination is, we're not hiring you because you're black. So now you have equality, where now they have to hire you whether you're black or not. Well, equity says, okay, we hired you because you're black, but we're not paying you the same. So equity is, hey, you're going to pay me the same as you paid the other lady, the white lady, because we're doing the exact same job. So that's the difference between equality and equity. And so when Martin Luther King was speaking about equity and saying, we want everything the same down the middle, it was like, oh, hell to the no, no, no. And he brought in the poor, community, which included whites, because majority of people who are poor in the United States are white. The majority of people who collect SNAP benefits and Medicaid are white. Okay. So these people, were like, yeah. Some of them that had sense, because these ones right now, some of them still slow. And I don't even think it's that they don't have sense. I think it's just that, as what was it, Lyndon B. Johnson, who said, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best black man, he'll allow you, I'm paraphrasing, to pick his pockets. Basically he'll just hand over everything to you. But now, it's easier said than done, right? You gave up all your rights, you MAGA supporters. I remember these people, it's Trump flag, you see signs before the election in their yard saying Trump for president, y'all, because of taxes. Like, the fuck, you're not a billionaire. Like, are you serious? But really, it was about racial. It was about saving the white commodity. But the white commodity is really just an illusion. It's just used to manifest whatever they're trying to do on their end, which is just to maintain power and control. That's it. They don't give a damn if you live or die. Matter of fact, they don't mind because they're building robots to replace us. So, you know, that's something that we need to really think about. It's a lot to think about. Like I said, this whole conversation is a lot for me. We have always made lemonade out of lemons, even during the segregation times where we were not allowed to enter buildings. Shout out to Moulin Rouge here in uh, Las Vegas, it was the first black, or I'll say desegregated hotel. See what I'm saying? So the Moulin Rouge was established in 1955 because you had entertainers like Louis Armstrong, Sammy Davis Jr., Lena Horne, Sarah Vaughan, Nat King Cole, Duke Ellington, Dorothy Dandridge, Harry Belafonte, all of these people who would come perform on the strip or downtown because, yeah, they love our rhythm, but they don't want our blues, but they would not allow them to stay, and then it was segregated. You couldn't eat there. So they had to have a place to sleep, right? So, you had communities that opened their doors to entertainers and people who travel into the community. But also you had the Moulin Rouge. So we found a solution to the problem is what I'm saying. And so that was the first, I keep saying black because it was black. I've been, I have a lot of history with the Moulin Rouge, even though it's no longer there. It was built in the historic West Las Vegas. They finally got rid of it, which is sad that it just didn't, yeah, it's just sad. But it was the first desegregated hotel. And again, housed entertainers who came here. So we know how to, make make a way out of what they want it to be as no way. We know how to do that. Shout out to Pieces of She. She said she wouldn't ever trust these people. They love to hate. They love to hate. I have to reiterate that. Lots of them were raised that way, indeed. And if they did give us certain states to live in, separate but equal, they would poison the water or play games. Right. So this is what I'm saying when it comes to segregation. Like, can we ever be safe? Like, can we ever just go and live in peace and harmony? And then I have to tell myself, as I remind you all, this ain't heaven. This is earth. So I just don't think it's possible. So can we literally be segregated? Not really. But we can segregate our spending. We can segregate our education. We can pick and choose what we're going to teach our community and how we want to be as a community. We can do that, but we can never get away from this virus. It's here. We can't get rid of it. If we could, I think we would happily, because it is a problem. But I guess you just have to transition, hopefully, to experience something other than what we have here on earth. So I agree. Like, it doesn't matter what we do. They're always going to be around to bug us. But while we're here, we can strengthen ourselves by, educating our people in the way that they need to be educated, not in these institutions that are teaching us lies and ways to hate ourselves, basically. I mean, from the very beginning, we talk about this all the time here on In Your Ear Radio. All of the things they did to program us to make us believe that we were bad. You even think about the blue eye, brown eye experiment they did with the dolls. Like, even, the dark skinned people thought the dark skinned doll was bad and the light skinned doll was good, even though in reality, the white skinned people were the ones who were causing harm on the dark skinned people, but you would pick them out as being better in a lineup of dolls. How did that happen? Where did they do that at? Because somewhere along the line, they socially conditioned people to say that, to marginalize us, that they were socially conditioned to think that white is better and black is not, black is less. And you see the manifestation of that through the way that we are treated, through the way that we're perceived, the way that we are, the way that they present us to the world, the way, how they edit the media. But we have to take some responsibility and accountability too, and it comes with owning our own. And it's not just about products. It's about education, so if we're going to segregate, we need to segregate our education. I think right away, we need to start building institutions to where our boys and girls, just imagine your 12-year-old son, being required on the weekends instead of having to play football and suffer from CTE, possibly, God forbid. but all of the dangers we put them, in front of. Y'all, I was about to get into a cyber conversation, but I'm back to focusing. But all of the dangers that we possibly subject our kids to in athleticism and things of that nature, what if we took that time to make it a requirement that our kids went into an institution that was taught Black studies, Africana studies, about, rites of passage for a 12-year-old boy, and the same for girls? What if we did that? Instead of focusing on athleticism on the weekend or video games and things of that nature, like really took our future seriously. Because once we have a level of education, understanding of who we are, then it's easy to stand up against these people who try their best to oppress us. It's much easier when you are educated. That's why they don't want to educate a woman. They say if you educate a Black woman, then you've educated the entire home, because whatever we learn, whatever we know, we're going to pass it on to our household. Our family is going to know this is what women do. That's how we roll as Black women. So there's just so many things that we can do on our end. And again, we need, putting our money into Black institutions and enabling ourselves to have access to wealth. We'll have access to lower interest rates if we put our money into Black banks as a whole, not just boycotting Target, but turning around and putting our money into Black banks, having meetings, going to board meetings with these Black institutions and saying, hey, what can we do? How can we make it so that we have what we need to be able to have businesses? Because if these people want to keep us out, again, we should fight to close them down, because they're breaking the law by excluding us. That doesn't mean we want to eat at your table. That doesn't mean that we want to be allowed to have your unseasoned food. It just means that we're not going for the BS. You don't get to break the law. You don't get to mistreat people, discriminate against us where our tax dollars are in effect. You can't do it. You got to go find another planet to live on, because God ain't making no more land. And no matter how we divide it, y'all don't know how to just stay on y'all end. Y'all still come messing with us. Y'all can't even be happy in your own skin. You so busy hating on us and loving to hate us. Shout out to Pieces of She, because that is definitely the case. I just think about Harriet Tubman. She didn't go into the street and ask for freedom. She didn't ask nobody. She went and collaborated with others, and they created a pathway to freedom. So that's what we have to do. We have the ancestors who've shown and proven to us that we can do it. It has been done. Look where we are now, and all of the progress that we made. I think this is the first time in generations where we actually see things going back. Like they always attempted to do that by flooding our communities with drugs and housing our majority Black men and women in these institutions, these jails and prisons. They've always tried to find a way to push us back, dividing the family, having separate households with families in need. There could not be a male in a household. Again, drugs, just the education, poisoning our minds to hate ourselves, and all of the treatment that we've gotten from outside of our community that treats us like we're worthless. We, in turn, it became a contagious way to treat the people around us. And so if we can reverse that, which we can, which is by educating ourselves, building institutions for ourselves. We don't need tax dollars to do that. We need people to, like you have a subscription, you have a Netflix subscription, you have whatever subscription you have, people paying into something monthly. It don't have to be that much. It could be as low as $30, where we're all paying into something, into an institution, and have the best scholars available to educate our boys and girls, and that there's processes in place, there's traditions in place, just like we did on the continent of Africa. There were traditions in place, when a boy became a man, was transitioning to manhood. You watch Roots, you saw how once it was can't think of the lady's name now, who has passed away, our ancestor. But when she was releasing her son, he switched up on her. He was talking to her with a deep voice, and she allowed him to be released because he needed to know what he needed to know, because he needed to be able to raise and be beneficial to the tribe as well. We all need to do our part. And, in order for us to do that, we have to have a level of education so that we understand who we are, what we are capable of, and how to fight. We need our own military. We need our own, not to say we don't have this, but just, because we do. We have low key, we have our protections in place, but we need something separate from, you have a president who's already trying to dismantle, I mean, the Department of Education, but he's also trying to dismantle policing. He wants to privatize policing. Um, how does that work? So you have to pay to have policing. So we're going down that route. The light bulb comes on. Okay, we can have private policing. We can have community policing. We can have our own policing. We can let our tax dollars pay into the salaries of people who will make sure that our communities are safe and we don't have to feel uncomfortable when we get pulled over. We don't have to give our sons and daughters a speech about how to talk to police officers if you get pulled over. Yeah, we can put our own money into these types of things. So when I think about segregation, will we ever just be all the way separate? No. I mean, but in fact, we are to some degree. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, 12 o'clock on any given Sunday, that's the most segregated hour anywhere in the church, right? You have black churches, you have white churches, you have white God, you have black God. Everybody, you have white beliefs, you have other beliefs. So segregation is here. We talked about sundown towns. You have to worry about where you're going. Once you're driving on the road, there's no real freedom. You have to be concerned about somebody taking your life just for the simple fact is that they have hate in their heart. And now they're trying to make it so that some of us won't be able to go into certain facilities. But you have to remember, yeah, I want them to put them signs up because again, then I can hold them accountable. But also, we have to remember that our tax dollars go into a lot of these facilities, these public facilities that are these structures, and then again, they're shutting us out because when it comes to jobs, they can discriminate again. People that have plumbing and electrical and masonry, they have the skill set. They're going to be discriminated against because we don't have checks and balances that say you have to have a certain number of different people working here, or you don't get certain subsidies, or you cannot run a business because obviously you're being racist and you're stopping people from being able to provide for their families and live in peace because you're just so freaking hateful. So we've done it before. We're doing it now, but we just need to really amp it up. We really, really need to amp it up and focus on. We need to focus on ourselves, and that's what we're doing. I know, but even more so, we need to really, really be serious about just having our own personal communities. I heard somebody say we can have our own Walmart. It's not going to be called Walmart. It's going to be called whatever we want, but it'll have all the amenities that we enjoy going into stores of that nature, right? You can buy your groceries, you can get your toiletries, you can get hair products, you can get pharmaceuticals. There are a lot of black pharmacists. We can build pharmacies within our own stores. We can do these things if we put our money together and be serious about it, not argue and fight about, reinventing the wheel. The wheel is already a wheel. We don't need a new. The wheel is a wheel. It's round. It's very productive. We got it. Like the wheel is here. Now we just need to enhance it and make it to where maybe it rides smoother, or it's more efficient and effective. So that's what we need to focus on. And so when I think about segregation, when I think about what it would mean for us to be separate, again, my takeaway is that it'll never be that to that degree. It's going to be a lot of bloodshed before something like that happens. And so that's the sad part about it. Again, you had, Malcolm X also, who spoke against the segregation aspect of it. And, people try to pit Malcolm X and Martin Luther King up against each other. And I don't like that either, because even though they had their own way of moving us outside of oppression, they were on the right, they were heading in the same direction. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't all take the same path to get to where we get to in life, but we all seem to, we'll probably meet up with each other at some point, but we have different paths that we take. There was a quote by Malcolm X, who was, against, integration. He said, the house Negro and the field Negro, talking about the house Negro and the field Negro, he said he spoke about how the Negro loved the master more than he loved himself, and that the master's house, if the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would try to put out the fire. On the other hand, if we have a field Negro, the field Negro hated the master and despised his very existence. And if the master's house were on to catch fire, he wouldn't even spit on it. Nah, he didn't say that. He said, if Master's house was to catch fire, the field Negro would pray for a strong wind to come along. And that's just to say that, yeah, we were integrated into a burning house. And then some of us still, fan the flames. We try to keep Master's house afloat, constructed there. We don't try to move away from it by investing in our own institutions and educating our kids. We just complain about the way we're being treated and pour water on the situation. No, what we need to do is let that shit burn, and we need to rebuild our own, because these people will never love us. These people never intend to do right, and unfortunately, they live here with us. So how much more can you do, besides just have your own? And it's something about having your own, that just gives you a sense of pride and independence, and protection, and it's important. All of these executive orders that this president is coming up with, again, dismantling the Department of Education, he wants to do. These are executive orders. They are not law. These are just things he's doing. And then people are scrambling to appease him. They're not even following the three branches of government. And so that's what bothers me. When you hear people saying that the Democratic Party is not doing enough, we know these Republicans, we know what they're caping for, right? But when the Democratic Party is not doing enough, when you hear people saying that, it's because y'all letting him skip over the whole democracy aspect, the whole executive. There's three branches of government, and y'all are allowing him to skip over this. There's no checks and balances. There's no accountability. And that's what we're mad about. We start seeing people get locked up and being held accountable for breaking the law, skipping over the rules. Then we would say, okay, y'all are trying. But just simply say, get on TV and tell us that they're breaking the law is not enough. It's not enough. It's just not enough. There needs to be more. It's just not enough. Yeah, and I agree with GB, who says that we blacks get the job because of our color, but in contrast, they keep their job because of their color. Exactly, and the damage is already done. I agree. He says, I think the damage is done already. We need to just spin with us as a whole. Yes, that's the bottom line. Period. Full stop. Like, we see what it is, and now it's up to us to bring about the change. Again, Harriet Tubman didn't march in the streets and ask or demand or beg for anybody to give her freedom. She found a way. And when she found a way, she went back and got some more people and said, hey, I got a pathway. And so this is what I'm encouraging, you all to do as well. Again, three branches of government. There's the executive branch. That's the president, the vice president, and the cabinet. They carry out the law, and they're nominated by the president and must be approved by the Senate. So whoever in the executive branch must be approved by the Senate with the 51 votes. The legislative is Congress, Senate, House of Reps. They make up the 435 representatives we have. The legislative make the law. They write the laws. So they make the laws, the legislative branch. And the third branch, the judicial, that's the Supreme Court. They evaluate the law. So 9 justices were nominated. Is it still 9? My brain. But anyway, these justices are nominated by the president and must be approved by the Senate with 51 votes. And these checks and balances are put into place so that people aren't just doing what y'all's president is trying to do. Just skip over everybody. So if there is a law in effect, you have to follow that law. And if you choose to want to change a law, you need to be drafting up, meeting with the legislative branch and drafting up a new law, amendment, or bill, or whatever it is you want. And then it has to be presented to the House of Representatives. That's 435 representatives, and they have to vote. And that's why we were always encouraging people to vote in the midterms, because, the Senate and the Congress vote. It has to pass the Congress, and then it has to pass the Senate. And so if we have people in place that support our interests more so, I don't bang it. It's not Democrat or Republican to me, except when it comes to my interests. So they're in politics. There's no permanent friends. There's no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. So at this point, the Democratic Party is more, along the lines of my interests. And my interests include healthcare for all, lower taxes, equity, equality, paying, free education. The list is long. People having access to capital and being able to be homeowners and have access to education and jobs and trades and things of that nature. All of the things that the Vice President Kamala was trying to, propose to us and get into effect. And so you have a president who's just making up his own mind. He's skipping over the law. Okay. He's skipping over these steps and he's doing it intentionally. And this is why people feel like we're in a constitutional crisis, because the Constitution is being ignored. Like, this man don't know nothing about the Constitution. A lot of the senators, people that are in these positions, have a law background. They understand they know the Constitution. They understand that this man, he probably couldn't cite one amendment. He probably couldn't cite anything in relation to the Constitution. He just knows what he wants, and he's just gonna go ahead and do it because somebody told him you can just executive order it and then let them figure the rest out. And so they got people scrambling, and here we are. Here we are. So he wants to be a dictator. He told y'all that he wanted to be a dictator on the first day, and he's working hard to maintain that. We have to be in opposition. We have to be in opposition of what he's doing. And Sunny Hostin said from The View, if you guys don't know her, Latina, she said that it's not a resistance, because resistance is passive, opposition is active, and so we have to be in an opposing. Opposition is, hey, arrest these people. They're breaking the law. Simple as that. Why everybody acting like punks, pretending like they doing their job, but they're not doing their job. You know what I'm saying? They're not doing their job, and it's just very, very frustrating. It's just a lot. Even with the government shutdown, I'm sure you guys were following that. People have their mixed reviews about that, saying that the Democrats had an opportunity to call their bluff on the Republicans by shutting down the government, because they were doing some shicey business, trying to cut Social Security, Medicaid, and all of these things. And the other side, the Democratic Party, was not with it. But at the same time, according to Chuck Schumer, that he didn't want to risk shutting down the government because it could have been indefinite. And when people are shut down, some people still have to go to work, but they don't get paid until this is done, right? So they still have to show up for their jobs, for example, the military and some people in federal positions. And the lights would be out at the White House, to where these oligarchs would be doing whatever they want, because there's definitely no checks and balances. Not that they were going by any as it was, but they really wouldn't have anybody looking over their shoulder and seeing what they were doing. And so that was his concern. But then I come to learn that, yes, I understand that you were trying to protect the people, but it's my understanding, because the Senate does have the majority and the House, that they could still shut down the government. They don't need the permission or the votes from the Democratic Party. So, it's a lot of games being played, and it just brings me back to just, just asking us to focus more on building our own institutions, educating our young boys and girls. Knowledge of self is the key to freedom. Once we teach each other knowledge of self, who we are, what we bring to the table, who we come from, our power, our ancestry, those who came before us, and instill that level of pride and fight in our spirit, then the rest is it makes the job so much easier. When you're coming from a place of confusion, lack of knowledge, education, just being conditioned to hate yourself, you have a different mind state. And so we have an ability to become a community again. When we were growing up, everybody's parents, looked after everybody's kids. The running joke was that you be down the street, you might get in trouble. Somebody's mama might whoop you, then go tell your mom, and then you get another whooping. Like, people are always looking out for each other, to the degree that we didn't want to disappoint our elders, because we knew there was going to be repercussions and consequences, and we followed them. We looked for them to lead us and guide us in the right direction. And, we made success out of that. Right. And so then when things changed, where that level of accountability went away, parents didn't want to have their kids being part of a community. Don't talk to my kid, don't yell at my kid, or whatever the situation was. Then we became divided. Then we became segregated. Okay. So we probably just need to integrate and have our own communities as a people, and then we can do so much better. And I think it's so more important for us to focus on that than who's not going to be there. But again, this whole bill, this executive order, it's lawless. He's doing a lot of lawless things. He's breaking the law by telling contractors, we'll just look the other way. Just do what you want. It'll be up to the people to push back. So if we don't say anything, then yes, they'll get away with it. And then as we did with some of us with apathy in voting, we just fall back and say, oh, it is what it is. And they're going to just do what they're going to do. And so we don't fight them back. And so then we look up, and in fact, we do have segregation. We do have taxation without representation. We do have people outwardly discriminating against us. I mean, think about what MAGA's doing now. They've been emboldened to be disrespectful. They think that they can talk to you any kind of way because they have the protection of the president, possibly the police, because now, with the Supreme Court, a lot of the stuff that the president is doing is probably under some level of immunity. So yes, he's breaking the law. But remember, before he even got into that position, he made sure the Supreme Court would protect him and give him immunity. So any laws, which meant that any law that he did break as president, could not be held against him because he's president, because a president has immunity. So it's no wonder he's doing what he's doing and acting in a lawless manner. And people are allowing him to do it instead of pushing and holding people accountable, arresting people with no bail. You know what I'm saying? We know they know how to do it. So it's just really, really unfortunate that we're in these times, but it's also it's like a revelation to me that it was meant to be. The change is coming, and we are the change, and we just need to bring more of us together to fight and come together. Even with all of this, them wanting to have this power and control, the majority of the world is people of color. The global majority is the people of color. So if they want to separate us by race, they are the minority. And so their only thing that causes them to lead is the laws that they put into effect, and then them not following the laws, and then having people in positions to not allow them to be held accountable. Prior presidents have done the same thing. This one is special, very special, and he's pushing it as far as he can push it, and it's up to us to stop him from doing what he's doing. So I just want to again encourage you guys to, we just gotta stick together, and again put our money where our mouth is and support each other, support our institutions. Just even thinking about our kids. I was listening to a gentleman who hosts a show on SiriusXM Urban View talk about how he works with kids every day, and he just from ages, I want to say he said from 5 to age 30, he said kids. So but he just talked about how they're not being raised to be critical thinkers. He talked about how these kids come from, they come into these community centers. I would imagine something similar to like a Boys and Girls Club or something of that nature. But they come to these community centers because that's the only time they get food, and then maybe, they're mistreated at home, but they come around, they're smoking weed, they're telling him they don't leave the house without a weapon, and then they go hang out at the playground. And again, they're smoking weed, and he's like, hey, I'm not going to call you out. Like, I'm not tripping about you, smoking, even if it's legalized. But I know you also told me that you don't leave the house without a weapon. So some of these other parents see you on the playground, they feel it's disrespectful that you out here, smoking, and they're going to quietly call the police on you. And when they pull up, guess what? You got a gun on you, and you got weed on you. And where's the critical thinking? Like, if you're going to do the things you're going to do, maybe you should be more thoughtful in the way that you do it, because you can't be mad at people for not wanting to be around, having their kids around you getting secondhand smoke. And then you getting mad because, in fact, yes, some of these kids, unfortunately, feel like they need protection, and some of them do. But it's like driving a car with expired tags, and with a gun, and just not thinking critically about, maybe I should walk, or maybe I shouldn't carry this gun if I have expired tags, or maybe I should register my car. Like, just the social awareness, situational awareness is something that we need to instill in a lot of these youngsters. I always tease that, even the youngsters that wear the sagging pants, we all had our styles. Like, we all had our styles. I had to fight with my dad about holy jeans, and now that's the thing. Like, nobody could understand why people would buy a good pair of jeans and rip them up. Like, in their time, they wore holy jeans because that's all they had. So I understand fashion and tradition and trends of that nature. But if you're wearing your pants below your buttocks and somebody starts chasing you, how you gonna get away? You got to stay ready to get ready. So to me, just the social awareness, situational awareness, critical thinking, understanding um, cause and effect, and when to let your hair down and when to be prepared. You know what I'm saying? If you hanging out in a situation where you know some stuff may pop up, you might not want to have your pants hanging under your butt because it's going to be a problem. And as a man, a woman who I would, someone that I would consider a protector as a man, I wouldn't feel like you could properly protect me with your pants hanging down because you got to use one hand to hold them up. How can you protect me? So just critical thinking, just having situational awareness, and just understanding that. And he was speaking to that, even thinking about the twins who were killed in the woods, the twin boys in a sundown town. Like, did they end up there because they weren't aware that that was a sundown town? Like, we have to educate our kids on where to go, what not to go, and what to be prepared for, not to let people lure us into situations, or just being just real mindful of our surroundings. Just everything, and being more respectful amongst our peers, our elders, and things of that nature. We can let our hair down in private and do certain things, but in public, we should conduct ourselves in a different way, just out of respect. Because at some point, these kids are going to turn into 40 and 50-year olds, and they're going to want those youngsters coming up behind them to show that respect to them and to their family. And so, I think that's another thing that we could focus on when we're talking about, just focusing on integrating our communities, Black people, those like-minded people, and focusing on building a community that represents us, because a community that we've been conditioned to live in, been bred from, is one of chaos, is one of lies and deceit, and it's built to keep us segregated. Even if we live right next door to each other, mentally we are separate, we're apart. And so that's what it is. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, and we'll get into this a little bit more and take a different angle. But I kind of just wanted to brush the surface and kind of give you food for thought, thinking about segregation and what it really means, and how effective could it be, and what it could turn into if we even considered it. So thank you guys for joining me today. I always appreciate you guys for joining me. I appreciate you guys in the chat. I got to give y'all applause. And I know we got to do it after dark real soon. So we'll be doing that and getting really, getting into some really juicy conversation. So look forward to that. But until next time, take care of yourselves. Oh, you know what? Before I leave, let me make sure I just get a little laughter in here, because this little boy was so funny to me. I don't want to leave without a little levity. Because I didn't give y'all a lot of levity today. But I do want to share a little levity. I was listening. This is an old, I want to say probably from the late 70s to the 80s, a little boy interview. And I like them shows like Kids Say the Darndest Things and things like that, because I love to hear kids' perspectives. But this little kid, he was being interviewed, a young Black boy. Couldn't be, I don't even think he was 8, but I'll just say roughly he was 8 years old, being interviewed by a white male on the show. And they were asking him about what kind of girls he liked. And I just thought it was so cute and funny. So let me just put that in here before we go away, because it was just so cute and so funny just to hear his perspective, and something to just make you laugh a little bit. As soon as I could pull it up. But also, I want you guys to remember that, focus on learning something new every day. And let me just go ahead and get this clip. Focus on learning something new every day. And don't forget that somebody loves you. Somebody loves you, baby. But here it is. Let me go ahead and get this.
Yeah, older than me. They're older than me. That's why I get the older ones, because they're more mature. You got a girl? Huh?
Do you have a girlfriend?
You have a girlfriend? 3 of them. 3? They're older than me. They're older than me. That's why I get the older ones, because they're more mature, and they got money and stuff. Because they're more mature. Yeah, and they got more money. More money.
They have more money.
How much older are they than you? daddy over again because I think I know one of them age is 30. That's the only one I know whose age is right.
But your daddy knows how old they are.
Yeah.
How's he know?
Because he's been seeing them for a long time.
So shout out to him. Little baby said he like older women because they got more money than him, and 30 and up, and he 8. Okay, but I like his perspective. All right, you guys, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I hope that you have a good week until we meet again. Much love. Okay, God bless.